All right, welcome everyone into another edition of the Tribune Sports Podcast. I'm Andy Larsen. This is Jackson Batacao, our Utah Utes beat writer, with us today. After the Utes beat Cal Poly 63-9, scoreline probably as expected, but I still think there are things to take away from this game that we're going to talk about today in this podcast. Jason, I think the first thing is a little bit of surprising struggles of the offense early on, kind of having forced them to punt the ball and getting into some interesting situations. What do you make of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the offense was kind of just lacking efficiency. I think Dampier was a bit off here and there. He missed some early throws, and I think it was just a rhythm thing. I mean, Kyle even mentioned it. It just seemed like that burst that they had against UCLA was not there to start the game. It seemed like the offense was a bit disjointed at times. They weren't rushing the ball as much as they were against, I guess, UCLA early on. I think they were trying to get Devon more involved in the pass game and kind of see what he could do there, especially with the wide receiver struggles that they've been having and trying to establish more people in that group. So I think that kind of led to a bit of a disjointed start, but after those 5 drives, they punted on the 3 of their first 5 drives, and the 2 others were actually touchdowns. So it's kind of funny to say that they were struggling, but after that, every drive that the offense had was a touchdown, and so once they got their footing under them, it was the same high powered offense that we saw against UCLA. But yeah, I think Kyle mentioned it. He said Devon wasn't ripping the ball as efficiently as he would have thought. And he also said that it just felt like they came out slow. And sometimes that happens. You come off a big win. The team is kind of riding high, and I mean, football's an emotional sport. So maybe, you see Cal Poly on the schedule, maybe not that same burst of energy that you might have had against UCLA. So I think those all could have been factors, but I don't think Utah fans should be pressing like the red button of concern yet. I mean, they still scored 63 points and had 500 plus yards of total offense. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point, and it's interesting. You saw the interceptions. Later on that ended up
Hmm.
scoring some points as well, and I think that gets into
Yep.
our next topic. What Jackson Bennee did last night was great. The rest of the pass defense, Kyle Whittingham had some problems with, but Jackson Bennee seemed to be a standout.
Yeah, Jackson Bennee. I mean, the coaching staff had talked about him pretty consistently during fall camp. Especially with Smith Snowden playing more of a two-way role, especially on offense. It's given Jackson the ability to be moved to the nickel slot. He originally played safety, and yeah, he looked absolutely electric on Saturday. There were so many plays where he was just there. I think he had 5 total tackles, 3 pass breakups, and then he had that pick six. After the game, he said, I couldn't believe he threw it there. And so, I mean, he was even surprised that the ball was coming his way, but
Yeah.
he maximized on it and made plays, and I think that's a really good sign for Utah moving forward, especially if Utah has more wide receiver struggles and Smith Snow needs to step in to be like a number one wide receiver, which is kind of crazy because I don't think anybody expected that heading into the
Yeah.
season. And so, if you have Jackson Bennee who can play, a lot of pivotal snaps at the nickel spot, then that really frees up Smith to either play on the outside more. Smith was playing on the outside some snaps, and obviously, they could play him on offense. And so, yeah, I think Utah fans and Utah coaches and just the entire staff should feel nothing but encouraged about what Jackson did, and I think they would hope to see that production moving forward.
As you'd expect, Devon Dampier didn't play all of this game, right? In second half, we saw Byrd Ficklin come in, not Isaac Wilson again, and we learned the reason for that. I'm curious why, if you think that will continue, and frankly, if Devon Dampier were to get hurt, I'm curious who you think would be backup quarterback, if they would go with Isaac Wilson and break the red shirt, or stick with Byrd Ficklin, who I think has actually looked pretty good when he's been on the field.
Yeah, it's an interesting case because I mean, Kyle announced Isaac Wilson as the backup, and I don't think many people were surprised about that. But Jason Beck kind of followed up that same week. He announced, he said it's kind of a 1A 1B situation. So I think with that context, it really makes you wonder, what direction would Utah go if Devon were to get hurt? I think Isaac, there's the red shirt factor in there. I mean, Kyle,
Mhm.
hit it pretty hard on the head last night. Of he wasn't able to red shirt last year, and so they're kind of trying to preserve that. For this upcoming season. I mean, you literally last week when you know, Devon lost his helmet, Isaac walked into the snaps and he was a wide receiver. So,
Right.
there it seems like they're doing everything they can to kind of preserve his red shirt. I think on the flip side of that, Byrd Ficklin was a 3-star. And he's flashed a lot during camp. I had heard a lot of positive things about him. Obviously a very lively arm, very athletic. But it's different during a camp scrimmage versus game action. And I think Utah was trying to kind of get a perspective on what he looked like. How would he perform? What kind of command would he have on the offense? And by all metrics, I mean, it was Cal Poly, and it was already a blowout. But I mean, 53 passing yards, 55 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. And then he had that 38-yard run that was just electric. I mean, he stiff armed a defender and then he juked out another and then, waltzed into the end zone. And so, kind of did a Devon Dampier impression. And so he's extremely athletic. I would think that if Devon got hurt, Utah would still pivot to Isaac just because he has the D1 FBS experience. But I mean, if Ficklin keeps playing the way he does and has that command of the offense, and it's an easier transition from, say, going from Devon, who's also a dual threat quarterback, to Byrd, who's obviously a dual threat quarterback. I mean, we saw that yesterday. Rather than go to Isaac, who you might have to change the playbook for. He's not prototypically a running quarterback. He can move, but it's not something that he's doing consistently. And so
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of moving parts here, and I think it'll be interesting to kind of see if Devon does get injured. I'm sure Utah fans don't want to even imagine that scenario, but I think we have to talk about it given the injuries history at the quarterback position for Utah. So yeah,
Yeah, and not just Utah, but everywhere. And I think one
right.
thing that maybe will make Utah fans happy is, when I had my article last week looking at how often running quarterbacks are injured versus non-running
Hmm.
quarterbacks. Turns out running is actually not that dangerous,
Right,
compared to not running, right? Like if you look at
right.
NFL data, it's actually the quarterbacks who run most in the NFL, like your Lamar Jacksons, who got injured the least, which is, I
Hmm.
think, a little bit counterintuitive. It certainly was for me, but it's kind of those pocket injuries where you kind of get rolled up on, or
Yep,
you're blindsided, that may have the higher risk of injury. So kind of
yep.
interesting data there. We'll see if Devon Dampier is able to stay healthy. Obviously, any quarterback play, any snap you take on the field, there is always that risk of injury. So
Right, right.
yeah, good stuff. Anything else that we should watch for in terms of your coverage this week at the Salt Lake Tribune, Jason?
Yeah, no. Just the same run of the mill coverage. I have a few fun stories coming down the
Good.
pipeline. So be on the lookout of that. I was really happy with how my camerizing story turned out. Me and I
Yeah, it was good.
me and Aaron talked about that on the last podcast. So it's just keep chucking forward. So yeah.
You'll be in Laramie, right?
Yes, I'll be in Laramie. My first time actually.
I have never been to Laramie either, so I don't really have any advice for you other than everything I've ever heard about anyone who's gone there says it's an interesting place. So I'm glad that you're getting the experience.
Yeah, if you want to come with, I need somebody to keep me entertained on that 5-hour drive. So yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Hey, thanks everyone for listening to the Salt Lake Tribune Sportscast, talking about the Utes. The Utes win 63-9 over Cal Poly on Saturday. Thanks again, Jason.
Awesome. Thank you.